Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Risk, where our goal is to connect, engage, and inspire each other and build a community of risk practitioners. I'm your host, Naveen Agarwal. So happy to see all of you. And today I'm super excited to welcome my guest, Ronak Dunung. And Ronak and I got to know each other a couple of years ago. And he's one of those personalities I think is a rising superstar when it comes to medical device risk management. I've had many conversations with Ronak, and his practical approach and a very articulate approach to risk management has always impressed me. He is actually in a dedicated risk management role for the last couple of years and also in his current role at a major medical device manufacturer. So he is actually practicing risk management hands on and also training people inside his own organization. So I can't wait to have this conversation with Ronak. With that, Ronak, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey Naveen, I'm doing well. You're too kind in your introduction, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're so welcome, Ronak. Like I said, I'm super excited to have this chat with you today. But let's start by having you take us through your journey towards risk management. How did you get into this field? Because this is sort of a not a dedicated role in many companies, and generally quality people end up doing that. So help us walk through your journey.
Yeah, absolutely, Naveen. Reflecting back, I feel I've been really lucky in my journey from a professional perspective. Academically, I'm a biomedical engineer, and early on in my career, I got the opportunity to work with a global medical device manufacturing firm that primarily focuses on single use disposable devices. And really, as I said, reflecting back on how my journey started, I was so fortunate to have been employed by this firm because it was a relatively flat organization during the 13 years that I was with this firm. And I got exposed to a variety of roles, starting with R&D, product development, process remediation, and then towards the tail end, I would say 6 to 7 years in this with my previous employer, I got focused on risk management and usability. And that's when one of my responsibilities was being the process owner for risk management and usability. And got a lot of exposure doing risk management the right way. Also got exposure to FDA and
Mhm.
notified bodies. And really
Mhm.
through that very interactive experience and in a hands-on experience, I learned a lot. And the last thing I'll add, as you mentioned earlier, even today, the one thing I believe very strongly about is being hands-on in the work that where risk management is concerned. So I
Mhm.
have continued that journey with my current employer, a much larger global medical device manufacturing company with worldwide footprint, but I'm now exclusively focused on product safety risk management.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, guys, today we're going to have a conversation about how to create a community of practice in a large organization. And the reason why we want to focus on that is because by encouraging people to get involved and collaborate with each other, talk about risk management related topics internally, we elevate everybody and we help our businesses succeed. Kind of what we're trying to do here in an open community here, like at Let's Talk Risk, we are trying to engage everybody, having conversations. So today's conversation is going to be a little bit on the side of how to do this internally within an organization, whether small or large. I don't think that matters. What matters is that how can we get everybody excited about risk management and learn together and collaborate together. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or experiences to share, please continue to do that in the chat and we will bring that up in our discussion. So, Ronak, let's dive into that. First of all, help us understand how this idea of creating a community of practice came about in your current role.
Absolutely. And I think the essence of creating and maintaining a community of practice kind of started in both my experiences, my current role and the previous role as well. And really, what drove this requirement, the need that we were trying to address, is creating a knowledge sharing platform. But then, very soon, we realized that communities of practices are more than just knowledge sharing platforms. They serve as engines, if you may, for standardization and a cross-functional alignment across the various business units that may exist in a typical global medical device manufacturing company. And not to mention, community of practices also help the company have a mindset of continuous learning. And in my opinion, one of the key factors is preserving that institutional knowledge. So, really, in a nutshell, I feel like a community of practice, as we were developing it, we realized that it started transforming how an organization thinks, speaks, and really makes decisions. And to be honest, when you start hearing the language of your community of practice show up in everyday conversations, documents, and escalations, that's when you know that your community of practice is shaping the company's DNA.
It's great that you are differentiating it from just like a knowledge portal. I know many companies have SharePoints where they might, put together a bunch of presentations, slide decks, reports, whatever. And yeah, people can subscribe to them and they will receive an email. But everybody says, I'm so busy, I don't have time to read all this stuff. But I think what you're talking about is on top of that, also creating conversations and collaboration. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. And a key aspect of community of practice is really creating that safe space for your community. And there are various ways we can talk about how to go about doing that. But to your point, the community of practice in its essence is that time and space where people can get together, have conversations, share challenges and experiences, and really learn from each other and elevate that collective knowledge and understanding of what product safety means within an organization.
So it sounds nice. It sounds just awesome. And I'm sure that it's not an easy thing to set up. Can you share with us some of your early challenges when you were trying to set it up and really encouraging people that, hey, this is something different?
Absolutely. So the early challenges, of course, as you mentioned earlier, was resources, right? Time, availability of people, the experts. So once you have leadership buy-in and support, wherein, for example, they could permit the organization to have a central core process across all business units and one that focuses on product safety risk management, and then giving this team, rather the central team, the charter and the resources to initiate something like a community of practice and maintaining it. Once you overcome those challenges, that's when the momentum starts really building. For this team, I think the first thing that they really need to do is create that digital home for that community. It doesn't need to be like a fancy website. It could start with something as small as a single web page, but really anchoring that community to that web page, being clear about your mission, your objectives, really is to me the foundational start to building something bigger that can subsequently influence the culture of your organization.
So you mentioned a very important thing that you need to go secure some leadership support. So how far up the leadership chain you have to go for something like this?
It really, the way I see this, and ISO 4971 clearly states this as a requirement, right? Top management is responsible for setting the framework of what risk means to the company and ensuring that there are adequate resources. So I'm a strong adherent to standard and standard requirements. And the way I see this is it really goes to the top management's office to understand the need of not just doing risk management at the product level, but really giving the support and the resources to think of product safety and risk management as part of the company's culture.
Mhm. So let's put some tangible detail around that. I mean, a large company has a big hierarchy, a lot of directors and VPs and different departments. And generally speaking, there is no dedicated risk management function, at least on a business unit level. Would you say that you would try to approach maybe the top leadership in your quality regulatory department or medical safety department, product safety department? Give us some ideas about who we should go talk to first.
Yes, I think the simple answer to your question is yes. So you would want to go to the top management within the quality and regulatory function if you need to pick one or two functions specifically, because that's where I feel risk management comfortably resides within the organization.
Okay. Now, of course, these top people are super busy, right? And you go approach them and say, I want to start that community of practice. Here are some of the benefits. Can you share with us your early experience as to what kind of questions you got from them or pushback you got from them, or what prompted them to support you? Just what was this experience like?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's basically, I would imagine this is to be the common practice anytime you go with an ask to senior leadership, right? With your ask, you need to support it with what is your mission? What is the objective? What is the benefit that you're going to achieve for the company's processes, more importantly, the company's people with this endeavor of creating a central quality function specifically focused on product safety risk management, and then supporting it with a community of practice. So I think the challenges would be having a very clear mission statement, objective, highlighting your being prepared to show them what your growth would look like. What do you plan to achieve in the first 6 months? How do you measure success Those are the questions that we, at least in my experience, we got from senior leadership. My team got from senior leadership. And being prepared to answer those questions really enables you for a successful outcome in those types of discussions.
And I'm also thinking that as part of the charter or mission statement, you also need to tell them what resources you will need. And I'm sure that's going to be a tough conversation. Most likely they will say, Ronak, everybody's so busy. That's fine. You can do all this work. Great. Just do it on your own time. Just do it extra time. And that's not sustainable, right? How do we help them see the big picture that, yes, some dedicated resources will have to be allocated?
Absolutely. And I think, honestly, the best way to sell this idea, in my opinion, would be to be humble and pragmatic about this endeavor. A crawl, walk, run model is best suited to and show them that, look, we'll start small first. We'll keep checking in with you, show you our immediate successes, continuously get your feedback as we're developing this, but really start crawling first before we start running with this endeavor. And being rooted in a realistic environment that our medical device industry currently is, with the challenges that we face continuously, internal challenges, external challenges, really may help you give your senior leadership the peace of mind in your ask, specifically that you're not asking for the moon, you're just asking to slowly but systematically start impacting the company's culture and continuously improve on our understanding of patient safety.
Yeah, I like that very much. Now, let's talk about how you would measure success. And let's talk about that. And what I'm guessing here is that you will also have a phased approach, crawl, walk, run approach. In the beginning, you might have a different way of measuring success than in a mature community of practice. Can you share some of the metrics that can be used?
Absolutely. So, when it comes to community of practice, the way I think of metrics is in three broad categories, really. The first one is engagement. Those are simple metrics such as how many people attend your monthly community of practice meetings. In your frequent meetings, how many times do you see repeat participation, for example? Then the next major category is knowledge utilization. One of the aspects of maintaining a community of practice is furnishing it with relevant technical documents, guidance documents, audit support material, process maps, etc. So really being able to measure how often were these resources used, what kind of site traffic do you see on your digital home for your community. That's also an important metric because ultimately you want to create something that is used and helps move the needle when it comes to patient safety, right? So knowledge utilization is that second big category of being able to measure the metrics. And the third, and in fact, a very important and critical one, but somewhat something more from a long term perspective, is the cultural impact, right? And this one is really hard to measure, to be honest, Naveen. I'd love to hear from your audience how they measure the impact on culture. But some of the things that come to my mind are, for example, are people using the correct language when it comes to risk management? Are people still calling FMEAs risk management, or do they understand risk management focuses on hazardous situation, and harms as a result of those situations? How often does your company reference your COP guidance documents, your community of practice guidance document, etc.? So that cultural impact is a critical one, but something you have to have the patience from a long-term perspective, because you may not see the needle moving from a cultural impact immediately. It'll be easier for you to measure engagement and knowledge utilization much more quickly. But yeah, these are the three major broad
Oh,
categories.
great. Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's very clear to me how a phased approach can be really very helpful and systematic approach. Now, at the end of the day, I think we want people to be excited and we want them to feel like, yeah, it's a great thing. Every time I go to a meeting, I meet new people, I have new conversations, I learn something new. How do you build that excitement among people?
Yeah. That's a great question, right? And especially to an earlier point that you shared, that we have so many conflicting priorities that sometimes it's hard to maintain that level of excitement for continuous learning and continuous improvement. So some of the things that I have thought of that we could do potentially to generate interest and create a level of excitement is gamifying your community of practice. Now, let
Uh-huh.
me explain what that means.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, if you think of certain health apps, right? If you run your first 5K, you may get a badge celebrating your success that, hey, you ran a 5K today. Then if you run a 10K, you get a new badge, and so on and so forth. One could consider creating such a badge pathway, if you may, for participation, for different levels of participation within your community of practice. So I'll just give you a rough example, right? Within a community of practice for risk management, you could have like a badge for a COP explorer, someone who's just attended a couple sessions, navigated through certain web page, and building upon that, you can have a risk translator, if you may, someone who's been more hands-on with risk management, a process champion, then could be a next badge. So this is how you can create a badge pathway to create that level of excitement where people can, not necessarily from a perspective of competition, but a continuous improvement perspective, that as people start collecting more badges that they can showcase on their profiles, maybe that shows their dedicated investment in their own knowledge, which of course, as we all know, will ultimately impact and influence the culture of the company. And you can also
Gotcha.
add some like monthly quizzes, a mini risk case competition, mini challenges. And really, it's important to celebrate these successes once people start participating in these gamified approach of a community of practice.
I really like that idea. Now, giving badges is fine. I love this. It helps people see sort of a progression of their achievements, so as to say. But are these badges, just like for bragging rights, or is there something real behind it? Like, do they gain anything? Do they get any benefit? Is that possible?
And that's a good question, Naveen. And that really comes down to how you structure and create your community of practice. See, ultimately, these badges are associated with very real activities that we do within the requirements of ISO 14971 EU MDR. Right. So the fact that if, of course, certain badges will be easier to obtain, other badges will be more challenging. But ultimately, the fact that people are trying to get these badges and completing the challenges, they are inherently enhancing their skills. Now,
Yes.
how do you reward that skill development?
Yeah.
That's a question for our leaders. Do you want to tie someone's individual development plan with this gamified approach, but a very real approach where people are enhancing their skills? Do you want to start doing internal certification courses in line with some of the requirements or training that you offer in your COP? The sky's the limit out here.
Yeah.
Crawl, walk, run. Sorry.
I like that. No, I like that because then there is something tangible that people can gain. Simple things like in the monthly meeting you invite somebody to give a presentation, and then you invite a lot of other people. These people get immediate exposure and visibility, and they are now seen as sort of subject matter experts in that area. So that can advance their careers. And you mentioned tying it to the development plan, tying it to some recognition and exposure at different levels can motivate people to actually work towards them and achieve them. And in doing so, the achievement itself is rewarding, right? I mean, 5K, come on. I've done so many of them. I'm such a slow runner. And I'm not competing to be number one. I'm just there to finish the race. So just finishing the race gives me the reward. So to some extent, just having that achievement is rewarding enough. Now, how do you make it very clear to them that they are not confused between different levels and what they're going to get out of it? Can you share some examples with us?
Excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think creating that, developing that pathway and defining each milestone and relating what accomplishing a milestone can translate to their real world experience, depending on their function, whether they're developing products or part of the post market surveillance team, etc. Really showing that connection, and also at the same time defining the challenges, what you need to fulfill in a certain as a requirement for a certain batch. You can share that information on your COP where you're just presenting this very transparently, saying this is optional, but here's the benefit if you do it. And then there's some of the other ideas that I've discussed with various colleagues, internal and external to the company that I've worked in, is celebrating the successes with, say, hypothetically having a risk management day within your organization, right? So again, you can invite external speakers, you can invite people who have accomplished several badges over their career within a specific company, invite them to share their experiences, how that has benefited them. These are the things that you can do to really keep that engagement level high.
Yeah, great. Guys, I hope you're enjoying this conversation. We want to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, or thoughts to share, please put them in the chat. I'm sure you have been part of different communities of practices, and you have something to share. So we would love to hear that from you. Let's make it very interactive. So, Ronak, I'm also thinking that these communities also present an opportunity for informal mentoring to each other. Has that
Mhm.
been your experience as well?
Absolutely. See, these communities really, at its core, expose you to a larger audience. In this larger audience, if people participate, and many people do, you hear from individuals and understand how they think of product safety risk management, their approaches, some of their own lessons learned. And then really this becomes a venue for someone who could say, for example, is new to the industry to ping someone, some expert that they heard present at one of your monthly or weekly community of practice meetings. And they could simply ping them and say, hey, I really enjoyed your conversation. I'd really like to pick your brain more about this one project that I'm working on, etc. And that's how you form those connections for formal and informal mentorship. So to your point, Naveen, again, like once you get people together, ideas,
Mhm.
yeah.
So, Ronak, I'm now very curious. I think you have been doing this for a couple of years, right? Am I correct in that? This community of practice?
Yeah, formally, informally, I feel like think for the last 6, 7 years.
Okay, great. Share with us something that has surprised you that you did not expect to experience as part of having a some community of practice, something that surprised you. Can you share something like that?
Yeah, actually, this is a really good surprise because I'll be very honest with you, Naveen. My approach or thinking of community of practice initially was really focused on, I thought of community of practices as a knowledge sharing platform, a glorified online database, if you may, where you save best case examples for how
Mhm.
to do risk management, templates, guidance documents, etc. So, really, coming back to what we've discussed earlier, my biggest surprise, and a very pleasant one at that, was the impact that a COP can have on your company's culture. And really, I think in our previous conversations we've discussed, right? How do you change? How do you move the needle on culture? Of course, there's a lot of responsibility from top management.
Mhm.
And in this regard, one of the surprises that I recently experienced in my current employment was a very senior level leader commenting on the release of a new guidance document
Mhm.
through the community of practice. And I would have never
Wow.
thought in my mind that someone from C suite would have that time really when they have so much going on and such big agenda
So,
responsibility.
so
Yeah.
they obviously were familiar about this about the community of practice, this knowledge source, and they were engaging enough to go there and see a new guidance document and commenting them. Did I hear you correctly? Is that what happened?
Yeah. And I
Wow.
didn't know the reach of the community was in to that level. Surprise. Yeah.
That's really awesome. I'm excited about that. I think definitely you have put together something that seems to be working, that seems to be reaching people all through the organization and making an impact. So, Ronak, finally, I would say that this is also an opportunity to build your leadership skills, right? If you take on a role in a COP or do a little bit more than just being a spectator or a participant, is it not true that you can also build your leadership skills and be seen as a leader in your company?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really with once you create a safe space, I've learned that people will speak up. And when people start speaking up, very many a times people realize that A, they're learning continuously by just participating in the community. And speaking up gives them that confidence that they can now start pursuing maybe more leadership roles. Because now when they hear themselves talk, when they see people nod their heads, if your camera's on or in a virtual setting, they
Mhm.
get that feedback that, look, what I'm saying is right. So maybe I know what I'm doing. I've been participating in this. People ask me questions. I respond to them confidently. And that really, personally, from my journey, that gave me the confidence to start challenging myself and say, okay, can I be someone's mentor? Can I take on
Mhm.
a leadership role, a technical leadership role, a people management leadership role, etc.? So yeah, Naveen, that's
Awesome. And I totally agree with you. It happens. You get the confidence. And one of my, I will say, transformative experiences has been my participation in Toastmasters. And those of you who are not familiar with Toastmasters, it's a forum where it's a program, a forum where you learn to polish your public speaking skills. And all of us have challenges with that. No matter how good you are, I know all of us have challenges. So by being part of a Toastmaster club at work, it allowed us, all of us, to get better. So I totally understand where you are coming from there, Ronak. So, Ronak, I know time flies. We are at the end of our 30 minutes. So, I do appreciate our discussion today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. And I'm going to give Ronak just a couple of minutes to think about 2 or 3 key takeaways from our conversation that we can summarize this discussion with. But in the meantime, I'm going to share with you some announcements. And guys, part of being a community, and this is a community, this Let's Talk Risk is a community. We have been able to build this week after week you are showing up, and part of being in a community is also to share with each other some resources that can help us. So the first resource today I'm going to share with you, no matter whether you are between jobs or you are already currently employed and maybe thinking about career development, I think this program for my friend Mitch Robbins, Job Search Challenge that he's doing, Job Search Jumpstart Challenge, next week, April 14th to 16th at 12 noon. Now, I have been a part of his pilot program, and I can tell you, this is not just about job search. This is also about building your network. This is also about getting comfortable, reaching out to people, cold calling them, approaching them, presenting yourself to them as a value added partner, not as a job seeker. You will learn all those skills. So I strongly recommend that if you're interested, please reach out to me by messaging, LinkedIn messaging, and I will share that detail with you. I strongly recommend this program. The second announcement for you all is a post-market safety surveillance workshop that I've been running now for the last 2 or 3 months. It's a 4-hour dedicated hands-on workshop on post-market safety surveillance. We have had a fair amount of interest and attendance in these workshops over the last couple of months, and I want to tell you a little bit more about that. You will learn about regulatory requirements. There are many confusing requirements about post-market surveillance. You will also learn about some advanced methods of detecting signals early before they become a problem and what to do about them. And if you decide not to do anything about them, why not? So it gives you a framework for making those decisions. You will have an opportunity to do a lot of hands-on activities and exercises to practice your skills. And finally, you'll also learn about how to set up a very efficient and effective operating system for your post-market surveillance. And again, the next workshop is going to be in early May. If you are interested, please reach out to me and I will share with you all the details. With that, Ronak, the floor is yours. Please share some 2, 3 key takeaway points today.
Thanks, Daveen. And I'll keep it simple and short, just two short key points. The one, I'm going to focus on culture, right? We all know changing a company's culture isn't an easy job. It's not a single event that makes that big change, but it's really a cumulative effect of small, really deliberate and visible changes. And it is an approach that requires both a top down approach with senior leadership support and a bottoms up approach. The COP is strategically placed in a position where it has, at least from my experience, it makes a big impact on the people in the trenches who are doing risk management daily, but it also has the ability for senior leadership for them to weigh in. And really, if I were to summarize a moonshot goal, at least from my vision, what a COP can achieve, potentially, is that it could be the place where the next generation of risk strategies are piloted, pressure tested, and codified. Then we're not just improving the process, we're really building the intellectual capital of the company. And the final point, Naveen, is thank you to you. Kudos. You're doing a fantastic job maintaining this community. It has developed my skills, my learning capacity, my leadership skills. You and I have been talking for several years now. So, yeah, my last point is just a shout out to you, Naveen, for doing this. I know it's not easy work, but you've been consistent. And I'm sure, like me, many other people appreciate your input.
Thank you, Ronak. I think it's because of people like you and everybody who shows up week after week that inspires me to continue. We are all in it together and we share the same challenges, frustrations, and aspirations. And what gives me a lot of energy is to see all of us coming together. And I really appreciate that. So, Ronak, thank you for sharing your insights with us. I'm excited, guys. I don't know about you, but I'm excited about this whole idea of creating communities of practices within our companies. Imagine how much we can do to change our culture. We always say top down leadership, this and that. But I believe power is also in our hands. And all we have to do is take the initiative, learn from these best practices that Ronak has shared with us, and just give it a try. I hope you will be very inspired to do that. And I wish you all the best. Guys, with that, thank you again for joining. I wish you a very good weekend ahead. Take care and have fun. Thank you, Ronak.
Thanks. Bye.